Thank you very much for joining me. Here are the Job Scam Report. This is Mark. And if you want to know more about me and what I do, the Job Scam Report comes out every Tuesday. There's a newsletter and there's also a podcast that accompanies it for the most part. You go to Mark Anthony Dyson page where I have actually a couple of podcasts. The Voice of Job Seekers has been running since 2013. I just started this podcast last year in May of 2013. So I hope this will be useful information for you. If you're interested in protecting yourself in your job search and navigating the landscape without being scammed. And it's a hard one. And a lot of really intelligent people have been victims because these scams come very close to the real thing. As fast as technology is changing, so are the bad actors and their use of technology, especially of artificial intelligence, which most of us have heard about. Some of us have started to look at AI a whole lot more seriously. I think it's going to be what Google is now as far as SEO, and Google will be what the library used to be. I've talked about it in a couple of episodes in the past, a couple of episodes where AI is going to be something where information is going to just present itself in such a way where Google was presenting where you can find it and you have to click links to find it. AI can present a whole profile before you. It may have, right now it has links, but to where you can go to verify the information, and perhaps you should. But scammers are using AI to scale their efforts. They're able to use information, get information a whole lot faster than they would if they were just to Google information. So it could come up with a whole profile of schemes and deviant scams where people will lose their money, their personal information. And scammers, as far as job scams, they're looking for the personal information. They want to be able to become you, and it should scare you. I was looking at a survey a couple of weeks ago, and it's from upwind.io. I'll put the link to the study in the show notes. But I think it's important you'll need to gather how important AI and what kind of role AI is actually playing in job scams. It's important for you to know more so than to not just avoid it, but understand at what scale and at what price are people paying it to when they become a victim of a scam. A couple of data points where I think it's going to be really important, or I think it's vital information to give you some insight to how big it's becoming, and maybe it will urge you to be more vigilant, be more aware, and to have more knowledge so you can combat these scammers when you are searching. And they're coming at us from all angles, coming at us from text, email, phone calls, LinkedIn profiles, fake recruiters, texts, from many different angles. So I think it's worth going through the study, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. One of the stats that stood out to me was the 87% worry AI aids scammers. Again, this comes from upwind.io. They polled 1,200 Americans about their concerns about AI-driven scams, what scale they're able to do it at. And we know what they're using AI for. They're using AI to generate content for their scams. At first, a lot of the AI content they were generating had run-on sentences, didn't make any sense, they had false data was involved. They also were very general in their approach, and yet people still fell for it. But as people grow in their knowledge, so do scammers. So as you become more aware, they're becoming more aware. And it's something we have to really get a hold of. They're not going to generate the same stuff out there not available to you. So as more intelligence becomes more accurate, more real, and in more real time, try AI out and try out ChatGPT and some of the other ones, Claude and Perspective.ai, and the search engine. Start with your name, especially if you use LinkedIn. to see what comes up under your name. Use it as you have online. Now, some of us have different names online. Some people will use their first initial last name instead of the full name. I use my first and my middle and my last name, and I did back in the day. Anywhere online is exactly the same. I encourage you to do the same. Whatever name you use, you're able to use in a way where it's easy to identify yourself. Not for the scammers, though. Is for the people who want to do business with the real you. They're able to identify you. Especially use it in meetings, even on Facebook, when you go to conferences. People will get to know you first when you're online. So they're going to go to your LinkedIn profile, probably the number one place. But the second place they'll probably look through is go to AI to see what they know, what AI knows about you. If you're not showing up in AI, it could be good you stay less anonymous, but not so good if a recruiter was looking for you or somebody got your name, a legitimate employer got your name, and they want to look you up. Those kinds of things are going to be very valuable for the next few years as Google lowers its profile, even though right now, according to another survey I read, ChatGPT is still by far compared to Google less significant. But it's scaling pretty fast. And that's going to change over the next few years. So right now, it's good to know to get known. But so you want to be easy for people who are getting scammed in your name to also authenticate you. In the future, they're going to want to do it through AI. Can you be found AI and be found for what you want to be found for? As much as we're talking about how, and I digressed a little bit, but all I have to say is scammers basically right now are using it to scale on the schemes they're using. And finding you right now through AI is probably not as big a deal on how to find out the full people in your industry to get them to click on a link or to want to communicate with them. Once you start to go down the road, then you've already verified who you are and they're the person that you're after. Because they maybe don't know your intimate information, but they may have financial information you might have left on other sites they've scraped up off of other sites to be able to use to eventually become you. And it's a big picture thing. But all to say is, again, most people understand AI is being leveraged by scammers as well as professionals who are really working in this industry. 61% have experienced personal data breaches. Again, we're talking about the Upwind.io study was done a couple of months ago. I know once I heard about the data breaches of credit card, I locked my information immediately with all three credit bureaus. And hopefully you did too. And I don't think it was a knee-jerk reaction. I just think it's time to take another level of security these days, especially with scams running rampant. There are financial schemes that are happening every day based on the information they have had or they've been able to get from you and then be able to get from elsewhere on the web. And so they're getting cars in their names, houses, property, cryptocurrency, and a lot of things could be leveraged to put you in debt. So your understanding is a lot of times when people are just, their information has been breached, doesn't mean it's being used right away. It could have been a breach from a couple of years ago where your information was more vulnerable and you did nothing about it. So we want to be a little bit more wiser, a whole lot more shrewd going forward in understanding your personal information is an asset for you to protect, and you need to do everything you can to protect it. And I've gone pretty deep on what you should protect and you shouldn't protect in past episodes. I'll link to a couple of those in the show notes. But I think when it comes to data breaches, you should perk up and check the boxes to make sure you have things on lockdown when it does happen. It says 44% are very concerned about the AI-fueled scams. 43% are somewhat concerned. And again, this was a survey of 1,200 Americans who are concerned about AI and what it's doing. It's pretty scary. And we have an issue of thinking we're going to miss opportunities. No matter how those scams may come across to us, we understand what doesn't feel good and what doesn't feel right is something we should disengage from. Especially when someone displays that they know some things they should know, like they should know what work you do, what industry you work in, but they have fake LinkedIn profiles. Or they know where you bank, but they don't know your bank account information. If you verify, you've given them an upper hand. So all of those things to say is they're coming at scale is to wear you down. On the other hand, a lot of us who are job searching have applied to hundreds of jobs a month. And how carefully most of us are in vetting companies and making sure we're contacting real people. The websites we go to verify information is really the authentic website is scary. So out of 100, my opinion, and I don't have any data, there's a few very questionable jobs that you might have applied to. You might give them your personal information. You might have been smart enough not to give them the personal banking direct information if they asked. But when you look at the whole picture, it's scary how much information actually out there between what you've put out there in job applications and what they know they've been able to get from elsewhere. Understand companies get information from legitimate companies. They may even have sold information that they get from job applications to other companies where they profit from as well. So when it goes to third party, it goes pretty far down the line. And you've got to be much more shrewd in giving information. You should always vet very carefully where you're applying from. I'd rather see you apply to 20 jobs a month and you vet it very closely, information. Now, even if you did 40 jobs, but when you do 100, 200, 300, it's almost mindless. You're able to look at and see if they're legit or not. Now, on the other hand, I hope companies with fake employees and fake workers, they start to become a little bit smarter in verifying who comes into the company. But there's going to be many different ways people be able to access personal information. Some of it a lot of it you didn't even intend to become available to scammers, but they're going to have a hold of it. So the reality is scams disguised as legitimate opportunities, as they are legitimate opportunities communicated by those with scammy behavior. In other words, there could be a real recruiter with the real company who has scammy behavior. They may not even act ethically themselves, but those small percentage of recruiters could have scammy behavior. You got to ask yourself, do you want to conduct business with them anyway? So I'll put the whole report in the show notes where you can find them. I'm hoping we'll all become much more shrewd the way we give our information away to any institution. Perhaps you want to lock down your credit card report. Suppose you want to use a Google Voice number or a email number instead of giving out your real phone number, or using a Gmail address instead of a real Gmail, just for your job search, for only your job search, and you're only giving out information, and you know you're not going to use a particular account for any credit card information or any financial information or any personal information other than what's relative to what an employer needs at first. So those are a few ways you kind of safeguard yourself to make sure you have in place going forward and partially protect you. But really, if something doesn't feel right and doesn't look right, you've got to guard it. You've got to guard your personal information. If somebody acts in a way that doesn't seem ethical or doesn't seem right, or it seems funny and it makes you suspicious, you have a right to disengage. In fact, any red flag comes across your eyes and your ears, you should be on alert, saying this may not be a good situation. Even if you're wrong, I'd rather you be safe. Safe these days is better than being wrong, in the sense that you've given your information to the wrong person. It's better not to give information, as recruiters are legit recruiters and legit hiring managers are very forthright in proving they are who they say they are. And I hope more of them will be more forthright. Because just because they have a LinkedIn account doesn't mean they're acting ethically or they're even real. Unless you've met them, you've known them for a long time, which is something even better than trusting one might have a legitimate opportunity all randomly sends you a text. And I'm not saying good recruiters don't text. Most of them will text if you've opted some kind of way. But most of them, they understand the landscape we're dealing with these days. They're choosing not to do it unless they've known you, they've met you, you've talked, you've done business in the past. Then I can see that's the case. So, leaving all the information out there for you, these are just reminders, not intent to give you the whole book on avoiding job scams, but I think at least on a base level, you'll be able to look and see people with good behavior will act more ethically than people with bad behavior and will communicate in a way that's more ethical, or people with bad ethics will lead you to bad results as far as remaining safe online. Good luck out there, and always come back to the Job Scam Report with this articles and find it at markanthonydyson.substack.com. And again, I have a lot of this information already in the show notes. You'll be able to see the whole report as I'll link to it there. But I definitely want to do a video about it and to help you grow your awareness, so you're more vigilant and to become more knowledgeable to combat scams. So I'll look forward to seeing you next week. You have a great weekend. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at markanthonydyson.substack.com.